Welcome to another lecture on interpretation of statutes. Today's topic of discussion is Indian judicial doctrines. This is the third lecture on Indian judicial doctrines. These are the doctrines that is left: doctrine of severability, doctrine of ancillary powers, doctrine of laches, doctrine of waiver, and doctrine of repugnancy. In today's session, we will understand doctrine of severability and doctrine of ancillary powers. So let's begin. Doctrine of severability. This is also known as doctrine of separability, and it protects our fundamental rights as it is mentioned in clause 1 of article 13 of the Constitution. All the laws enforced in India before the commencement of the Constitution, so far as they are inconsistent with the provisions of fundamental rights, up to that extent of inconsistency, they will be void. But the whole law or act would not be held invalid, and only the provisions of the law which are not in consistency with the fundamental rights, they would be held as void. This is what doctrine of severability is. तो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के पहले जितने भी लॉज एंड रूल्स थे और आफ्टर द एनैक्टमेंट ऑफ द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, तो जो बिफोर लॉज थे जो भी इनकंसिस्टेंट हैं, जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के जो फंडामेंटल राइट्स हैं जिसके अगेंस्ट हैं, जो फंडामेंटल राइट्स को निगेट करते हैं या जो फंडामेंटल राइट्स को इन्फ्रिंज करते हैं, ऑल द लॉज दैट वाज देयर बिफोर द एनैक्टमेंट ऑफ द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, वो सारे लॉज जो इनकंसिस्टेंट होंगे वो वॉइड होंगे. और वाई इज सेवरेबिलिटी और वाई दिस इज नोन एज डॉक्ट्रिन ऑफ सेपरेबिलिटी? सपोज देर इज एन एक्ट ऑफ मैनी रूल्स एंड प्रोविजंस, उसमें ऐसे दो प्रोविजंस हैं जो कि फंडामेंटल राइट्स को इन्फ्रिंज करते हैं एंड रेस्ट ऑफ द प्रोविजंस जो फंडामेंटल राइट्स को इन्फ्रिंज नहीं करते हैं. तो जो दो प्रोविजंस इन्फ्रिंज करते हैं उसको हम उस लॉ से, उस एनैक्टमेंट से सेपरेट करेंगे और सिर्फ उस दो प्रोविजंस को जो फंडामेंटल राइट्स को इन्फ्रिंज करते हैं उसको हम वॉइड और उसको हम null and void declare कर देंगे. So this is doctrine of severability, and since we separate provisions, we separate the inconsistent provisions, inconsistence with the fundamental rights provisions with the consistent ones. We separate the provisions. So we also know the doctrine of severability is also known as doctrine of separability, and it is only possible if the part which is inconsistent with the law is separated from the whole law. Okay. Now, if both the valid and invalid part are so closely mixed up with each other that it cannot be separated, then the whole law or act will be held invalid. Now, this is a very important point कि अगर जो valid part और invalid part है, अगर वो इतने closely mix up है कि वो हम उसको जो इनवैलिड पार्ट है उसको हम सेपरेट नहीं कर सकते हैं फ्रॉम द वैलिड पार्ट, और अगर इनवैलिड पार्ट को हम सेपरेट करेंगे तो वो जो लॉ है, वो जो एनैक्टमेंट है, उसका कोई मतलब नहीं रह जाएगा. तो ऑल्दो उसके जो इनवैलिड पार्ट है बस वही इनवैलिड है और वैलिड पार्ट कुछ होंगे, लेकिन फिर भी वो जो ओवरऑल लॉ है उसको हमको, ओवरऑल एक्ट है उसको हमको इनवैलिड कर देना होगा. सो इफ बोथ द वैलिड एंड इनवैलिड पार्ट आर सो क्लोजली मिक्स्ड अप विद ईच अदर that they cannot be separated, and if separated it has no value, it has of no value, or the valid part also has no value, then the whole law or act will be held as invalid. Okay, so this is doctrine of severability. Now there is an important case in this regard, A.K. Gopalan versus State of Madras. A.K. Gopalan versus State of Madras. The Supreme Court held that in case of repugnancy to the Constitution, only the repugnant provision of the impugned act will be void and not the whole of it, and every attempt should be made to save as much as possible of the act. I hope this is clear. Okay. If the omission of the invalid part will not change the nature or the structure of the object of the legislature, it is severable. So, we understood this? अभी हमने समझा कि अगर ओमिशन ऑफ द इनवैलिड पार्ट विल नॉट चेंज द नेचर एंड स्ट्रक्चर ऑफ द ऑब्जेक्ट, देन ओनली इट इज सेपरेबल और इट इज सेपरेबल. और अगर इनवैलिड पार्ट के ओमिशन से जो नेचर है, जो स्ट्रक्चर ऑफ द एक्ट है, जो लॉ है, उसका नेचर ही बदल जाएगा, उसका ऑब्जेक्ट ही इनवैलिड इनफ्रक्चुअस हो जाएगा, तो उस ओमिशन का कोई मतलब नहीं रहा, तो वो सेपरेबल नहीं है, वो सेवरेबल नहीं होगा इनवैलिड पार्ट, और उसको फिर हम सेपरेट नहीं कर सकते, और इन दैट केस होल लॉ जो है वो सेपरेट वो वॉइड हो जाएगा. इट वॉज हेल्ड दैट एक्सेप्ट सेक्शन 14 ऑल द अदर प्रोविजंस ऑफ प्रिवेंटिव डिटेंशन एक्ट 1950 वर वैलिड, एंड सिंस सेक्शन 14 could be severed from the rest of the act, the detention of the petitioner was not illegal. So here section 14 of the Preventive Detention Act 1950 was under question, and only section 14 was held to be inconsistent with the fundamental rights of the constitution. So, and it could be severed, and then also the structure and objective of the Preventive Detention Act 1950 was standing, was valid. So section 14 was severed, and the detention of the petitioner was held to be not illegal. So this is an important case regarding doctrine of severability, A.K. Gopalan versus State of Madras. Now, State of Bombay versus F.N. Balsara. We discussed this in the previous lecture as well. State of Bombay versus F.N. Balsara. So, 8 sections of the Bombay Prohibition Act were declared invalid. The Supreme Court said that the portion which was invalid to the extent of fundamental rights was separable from the rest of the act. So here as well, Bombay Prohibition Act was under question because some provisions of it were held to be inconsistent with the fundamental rights, and the Supreme Court held that only those 8 sections which were inconsistent with the fundamental rights, they are invalid and they can be severed from the Bombay Prohibition Act, and still Bombay Prohibition Act is valid enough to stay in the original position, to stay as law. So the Supreme Court said that the portion which was invalid to the extent of fundamental rights could be separated. So 8 sections of the Bombay Prohibition Act were separated. So State of Bombay versus F.N. Balsara. This is also an important case. Okay, now this is the third case regarding doctrine of severability. RMDC versus Union of India. RMDC versus Union of India, and it is considered as a landmark judgment that completely observed what is doctrine of severability. It gave the meaning, it gave the exact meaning, the definitions regarding doctrine of severability. So this is a RMDC versus Union of India is considered as a landmark judgment as far as doctrine of severability is concerned. So let us understand. In determining whether the valid parts of the statute are separable from the invalid parts, it is the intention of the legislature that is the determining factor. So whether the valid parts of the statutes can be separated from the invalid parts, in order to find out, it is important to find out the intention of the legislature. जो intention उन legislatures का था, उसको find out करना कि what was the main intention behind the enactment of this act, that is before the constitution, before the enactment of the constitution. So it is very important to find out the intention of the legislature, that is the determining factor, that is said to be the determining factor. And how the test is applied? The test that is applied is whether the legislature would have enacted the valid part if it had known the rest of the statute was invalid. So what is the intention? How is the factor determined? इट इज़ क्वेश्चन दैट कि जो लेजिस्लेचर है, अगर उनको पहले से पता होता कि सपोज जो इनवैलिड पार्ट है उनको हम अगर जो इनवैलिड पार्ट है अगर हम उनको इनैक्ट कर रहे हैं, तो उनसे जो वैलिड पार्ट है उनकी भी वैलिडिटी को हमें प्रॉब्लम में, उनकी भी वैलिडिटी प्रॉब्लम में आ सकती है. तो क्या वो वैलिड पार्ट को भी इनैक्ट करते अगर उनको ये पता होता कि जो सर्टेन प्रोविजंस हैं ये इनवैलिड होंगे और इन फ्यूचर इन दोनों की वैलिडिटी को क्वेश्चन किया जा सकता है. तो द टेस्ट इज अप्लाइड वेदर द लेजिस्लेचर वुड हैव इनैक्टेड द वैलिड पार्ट. तो जो लेजिस्लेचर है क्या वो वैलिड पार्ट को इनैक्ट करते अगर उनको ये पता होता कि जो रेस्ट ऑफ द स्टैट्यूट है वो इनवैलिड है. सो दिस इज द फर्स्ट point, that is intention of the legislature, that is held to be the determining factor to find out whether the valid parts of the statute are separable from the invalid part. The second is if the valid and invalid provisions are so intricately mixed up that they cannot be separated from one another, then the invalidity of a portion must result in the invalidity of the act in its entirety. सो इफ़ दी इनवैलिड, नाउ देयर इज अ सिचुएशन कि वैलिड एंड इनवैलिड प्रोविजंस है वो इतने मिक्सड अप है कि उनको हम अलग नहीं कर सकते हैं. तो अगर इनवैलिड तो उसको हम अलग नहीं कर सकते हैं, तो सिर्फ प्रोविजंस, कुछ प्रोविजंस के इनवैलिडिटी और कुछ प्रोविजंस के वैलिडिटी का कोई मतलब नहीं रह जाएगा, सिंस दे आर नॉट बी एबल टू सेपरेट, वी आर नॉट एबल टू सेपरेट बोथ द सेट्स ऑफ प्रोविजंस. तो वो पूरे एक्ट को हमें इनवैलिड बोलना होगा. सो द मस्ट रिजल्ट इन द इनवैलिडिटी ऑफ द एक्ट इन इट्स इंटायरिटी, एंड इफ दे आर डिस्टिंक्ट एंड सेपरेट देन इट विल अपहेल्ड, and only the invalid part would become unenforceable. So अगर valid, so I hope this is clear. The invalid and valid provisions अगर ऐसे mixed up है कि उनको हम अलग नहीं कर सकते हैं, तो उसको पूरी एक्ट को इनवैलिड बोलना होगा. लेकिन अगर वो सेपरेट हो सकते हैं तो एक्ट वैलिड रहेगा, एंड ओनली द प्रोविजंस which are inconsistent with the fundamental rights would be held as invalid. Even when the provisions are valid and distinct and separate from those which are invalid, if they all form part of a single scheme which is intended to be operative as a whole, then also the invalidity of a part will result in the failure in the whole. So this is very important कि अगर जो provisions जो valid है और invalid है, अगर वो distinct भी हैं और अगर उनको हम separate भी कर सकते हैं, जो valid provisions है from the invalid, if they are distinct, if they are separated, लेकिन although the valid and invalid provisions in together in its entirety, they form a part of a single scheme which is intended to be operative. तो both the valid and invalid provisions, उसको अलग करने का कोई point नहीं है, क्योंकि they all form part of a single scheme, and that is the intention of the legislature, ताकि वो वैसे ही operate हो, in its entirety वो operate हो. Then also the invalidity of a part will result in the failure of the whole. So this is RMDC versus Union of India. So this was doctrine of severability. Now we move on to the another doctrine, that is doctrine of ancillary powers. In a federal system, there is a distribution of powers between the center and states. This is clear in federalism. This is federalism means distribution of powers between center and states. So in a federal system, there is distribution of powers between center and states. Although an attempt has been made in the Constitution to demarcate the fields as exclusive, it has not been possible in practice to allocate legislative competence in such a way as to prevent overlapping. So, since the distribution of powers has already been made, there have been various and several attempts in this regard by the Constitution, एक proper demarcation करना कि this comes under central legislation, central powers, and this is the powers of a state. लेकिन in order to overcome the problem of overlapping, but this has not been the case. There have been cases of overlapping. We will understand this is what doctrine of ancillary powers hopefully talks about, and this caused the conflict between the union parliament and the state legislature, which is obvious when there will be overlapping between two legislative authorities. This will create conflict. So the overlapping, because of the distribution of powers that happens, creates conflict between the union parliament and the state legislature. The doctrine of incidental or ancillary powers was evolved as one of the interpretative techniques used to help determine the scope of entries in the list and hence to resolve the conflict of legislation. So the doctrine of ancillary powers or incidental powers का जो doctrine ये evolve ही हुआ था इसी चीज़ के लिए, ताकि जो list है, जो union list, state list and concurrent list है under schedule 7, उसमें जो एंट्रीज दी हुई हैं कि यूनियन लिस्ट 1 इज़ यूनियन लिस्ट, लिस्ट 2 इज़ स्टेट लिस्ट, लिस्ट 3 इज़ कॉन्करेंट लिस्ट. तो उन लिस्ट्स के स्कोप को डिटर्मिन करना कि हाउ लिस्ट 1 में जितनी सारी बातें हैं वो यूनियन लिस्ट में है, वो सेंट्रल के अंडर आती हैं. स्टेट लिस्ट जो लिस्ट 2 में डिफाइंड है वो सारी स्टेट के अंदर आती है. एंड कॉन्करेंट लिस्ट में वो सारे मैटर्स हैं जिसमें स्टेट और यूनियन दोनों लेजिस्लेट कर सकते हैं अपने हिसाब से. So doctrine of ancillary powers is there to resolve the differences of conflict of legislations and determine the scope of entries in the list that is mentioned in schedule 7. This doctrine is in addition to the doctrine of pith and substance. It allowed for certain powers to be impliedly admitted by virtue of other and express powers in the list of competence. So we can say that this is an extension of pith and substance. We discussed pith and substance in the previous lecture to find out the true intention of the legislature. This is what pith and substance was. So the doctrine of incidental powers is an extension to doctrine of pith and substance. So to resolve the differences, the conflict of legislation. Now let us understand this. United Provinces versus Atika Begum. It is a 1941 judgment. United Provinces versus Atika Begum, 1941. The Federal Court of India observed, none of the items in the list is to be read in a narrow or restricted sense. Each general word should be allowed to the extent to all ancillary or subsidiary matters. Each general word should be allowed to extend to all ancillary or subsidiary matters which can fairly or reasonably be said to be comprehended in it. So it was made clear in this case कि किसी भी matters को, किसी भी entries को, किसी भी item जो भी list में है उसको हम narrow sense में read नहीं करेंगे और उसको हम एक broad and wider meaning देंगे ताकि हम उसको जो उसका meaning है उसको हम reasonably comprehend कर सकें. Now there is another case, Express Hotels Private Limited versus State of Gujarat. Express Hotels Private Limited versus State of Gujarat. In the word of Supreme Court, so Supreme Court in this case held that the entries should not be read in a narrow sense but must be given their fullest meaning and the widest amplitude. So in this case as well, the Supreme Court held that the entries should not be read in a narrow sense and they should be given a wide and a fullest meaning so that उनको हम एक reasonable ढंग से comprehend कर सकें और अगर overlapping हो भी तो जितना ज़्यादा possibility है हम उसको valid कर सकें. So R.C. Cooper versus Union of India, another case in this regard. So there was the question regarding entry 45, banking in the union list. So the rule that an entry conferring legislative power should be interpreted broadly to include all ancillary and incidental matters cannot be stretched to any extent. So in this case it was this is quite you can say that it is an exception to this rule where it was held. इसमें डॉक्ट्रिन ऑफ एंसिलरी पावर्स को हमने नहीं लगाया था और इसमें बोला गया था कि हम हर मैटर को, हर लेजिस्लेटिव पावर को, हर एंट्री को इसके वाइडेस्ट एंड फुलेस्ट सेंस में अगर रीड करेंगे तो इसको हम, इसका ये मतलब नहीं है कि उसको वैलिडिटी देने के लिए हम इसको किसी भी एक्सटेंड तक स्ट्रेच कर सकें. उसको उसी एक्सटेंड तक स्ट्रेच करना है, उसके मीनिंग को, उसको हम ऐसे ही इंटरप्रेट करेंगे ताकि वो वैलिडिटी या वो एंट्री वैलिड रहे, वो एंट्री इनवैलिड ना हो जाए, वो एंट्री इतना स्ट्रेच ना हो जाए जस्ट सो दैट कि वो किसी भी लिस्ट के अंदर या किसी भी लेजिस्लेटिव पावर के अंडर फॉल करे. R.C. Cooper versus Union of India. This is also known as the bank nationalization case. And it was argued that the Banking Companies Acquisition and Transfer of Undertakings Act 1969 affected also to non-banking business. So the non-banking business was held to be outside the scope of entry 45, that is banking in the union list and the matters incidental thereto, and hence it was held that it was beyond the legislative competence of the parliament. So R.C. Cooper versus Union of India we can say that it is an exception to the doctrine of ancillary powers. Now we come to the last case of today's session, Check Post Officer Coimbatore versus K.P. Abdullah and Brothers. The limits of the doctrine of incidental powers is illustrated in this case also. This case also illustrates the limits of doctrine of incidental powers. So the Madras General Sales Tax Act had authorized the check post officer to seize and confiscate goods under transport not covered by a bill. So जो check post officer थे उनको through this act ये राइट मिला था उनको कि कॉन्फिस्केट कर लें वो गुड्स को. तो the court what they did, they refused to treat this as part of the ancillary power and pointed that कि जो कोर्ट था उन्होंने बोला था कि ये सेंटर के पावर के अगेंस्ट हो जाएगा, ये लेजिस्लेटिव पावर ये नहीं हो सकता है कि चेक पोस्ट ऑफिसर को सारा गुड्स कॉन्फिस्केट करने का राइट्स दिया जा सके एंड इट शुड नॉट बी गिवन एज द एंसिलरी पावर, क्योंकि ये फेयरली और रीजनेबली अगर इसको कॉम्प्रीहेंड करेंगे तो इससे क्या होगा कि जो भी आदमी अपना पर्सनल लगेज भी लेके वन स्टेट से दूसरे स्टेट में ट्रैवल कर रहा होगा उसको भी आप कॉन्फिस्केट कर लेंगे, बिकॉज दैट पर्सन वुड नॉट बी एबल टू प्रोड्यूस अ बिल ऑफ आइदर सेल और डिलीवरी। तो क्योंकि अब इफ आई एम ट्रैवलिंग फ्रॉम वन स्टेट टू अनदर, आई हैव माई लगेज, सो ऑल द लगेज आई ओन इट, आई हैव नॉट परचेज समथिंग। इफ एट ऑल आई हैव परचेज समथिंग देन ओनली आई विल हैव द स्लिप कि ये बिल है कि वे मैंने खरीदा है या फिर ये मुझे डिलीवरी करना है। तो इस कॉन्फिस्केशन से क्या होगा कि दिस विल लीड टू अ सिचुएशन ऑफ केओस, एंड ये जो चेक पोस्ट ऑफिसर को ये जो एक्ट मद्रास जनरल सेल्स एक्ट जो दे रहा है, ये दिस कॉन्फिस्केशन पावर is outside the scope of legislative power and it should not be read under the doctrine of incidental power, और इसको हम इस ढंग से इंटरप्रेट नहीं कर सकते हैं। So this is we come to end of today's session. So today we discussed doctrine of severability and doctrine of incidental powers. I hope you all are clear. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.